Oh boy, do we got a doozy of a show today here. So let's get right into some of the introductions here. Democrats are now considering doing just a one special carve out for the debt ceiling on the filibuster and nothing else. Let's not even look at anything else. When the rules don't work for you, change the rules. So we'll talk just a bit about what's going on with that. A whistleblower has come to testify before Congress, saying how dangerous Facebook is for kids and how they know about this and how they're specifically targeting this. And I don't trust a single word coming out of this woman's mouth. So we'll talk just a bit about what's going on here. The DOJ is planning on investigating parents who are going to school board meetings and getting loud. So we'll talk just a bit about that. And I'm not talking like the local DOJ. I'm talking the federal DOJ is looking and getting involved in this as terroristic threats. So we'll talk just a bit about what's going on there. And if we can, because we have got a bunch of stuff going on here today, but if we can get all the way down to it, we will also talk about Mike Pence and how he might be the presidential candidate. It's going to be all this and more. Let's go, Brandon. I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Well, good morning, everybody. What an interesting day we had yesterday. And there's a ton of stuff to go over here. Look at the top of what we have going on over here. Just look at how many articles are up there. We're not going to get through all these. And, of course, this dumbass overslept, too. But, look at all of this stuff here. The DOJ stuff just fascinates me as far as everything else that goes. But, yeah, we're going to talk about all of this. We got to talk about the debt ceiling again, because they claim they're going to have this done on Friday, hell or high water, and they will change the rules to come back and fit, which means they'll change the rules on whatever the hell else they want to change. So we'll talk just a bit about what's going on. With that, we'll talk about this Facebook whistleblower thing. We'll talk about interesting story about Veritas, too, and I actually got it from RCP. I didn't get it from, like, Washington Examiner or something else like that. I went right to RCP and went that way. But yeah, it's going to be all this and more over on Contemporary. Before we get started, though, head on over and check out the website. Let's get that one up over here. Head on over, check out the website, turnsomepagesproductions.com. We are raring to go, and we've got the fundraiser in full swing. So you can go over, check out the website. Once we are up and running, you can see great shows such as the Daily Ignoramus, the Breakdown with Breckenhoff, the R-Rated Conservative, the Freckles and Rich Show, and the Porch Boys. You can go check out all those shows in one convenient place. Plus, writers will have news articles up here. We'll have the research going. And the more you guys view, the more we see ads, and the more we start to get out and start to add more content to this. I'm really excited for where this could go. Who would have thought the excitement of having the news come from somebody wearing a Nintendo t-shirt rather than a guy who's wearing a suit that costs more than your house? Who would have thought that would have been a good thing? But apparently it's a good thing. And if you guys want, you guys can head over, check out the GoFundMe. You can pick up, and if you want to throw even a $5 bill, helps out. Everything helps out to get us up and off the ground so we can start putting the content out to you. We have the GoFundMe up here. Let me get that into the chat for you guys. There it is. It's up there in the chat for you guys, ready to go. FJB in the chat. Oh, I see what you're saying. Because I said, let's go, Brandon. I was going to say, what's FJB? But now I see what you're saying. Anyway, if you guys want to go, throw $1, throw $5, throw anything you want into that. Any little bit helps. It really does. And it helps us open this book up. Helps us, get some of these creators going up too. Set up to where they don't have to bust their backs on a big pedestrian job here. And they can focus more on the content. In spite of the fact that, yeah, it's a little bit of an oxymoron because we are building this as, a website where people go to work every day, give you the news. But I do want them to focus on some of their work too. But Regardless, that's what we have coming off of that. Let's get into the news of the day, starting with your finance. Looks like the Dow actually had a very good day, well, a fairly good day yesterday, when it's coming up under 1% every time it goes up and losing 1 to 2% every time it goes down. I wouldn't call 0.92% a very good day, but I would call it a good day at least here. It went up 311 points to 34,314.67 points. So a lot of stuff that's on the market here. And I do think that some of the markets think that they're going to overcome the debt ceiling thing and, everything's going to be hunky-dory. Otherwise, we would start to see some of this stuff dropping off, I think. Looking in at your Bitcoin, I think your Bitcoin is sitting here waiting. Well, Bitcoin kind of glows a little bit too, but I think it's sitting here and the investors in Bitcoin are waiting for that next money printer go burr. Because I think that's what they're looking at with us right now here. We're looking at $51,580 on your Bitcoin. So it's over the course of about a week, jumped up from 41,000 to 51,000. So people are buying into it left and right. I don't necessarily trust it. I trust other cryptocurrencies, but that one, after the pipeline thing, it did kind of make me a little bit nervous. Looking at your scrap metal prices, your copper is dropping. Your steel is on the way up, and your aluminum is on the average on the way down. Looking at some of your individuals. Bare Bright, copper tubing, flashing copper, number 2 copper tubing, those are all down. Insulated wire, thin wire, Romex wire are all up. Brass is up. Steel BX is down. I don't know what steel BX means, actually. Brass shells are down. Light iron down. Number 1 steel down. Okay, where's steel up? Because everything is down. Cast iron is up, rotors are down, a complete car is down, shreddable steel is up. I wonder how that works with like the F-150. The F-150s that they made after 2015. When they say complete car, because that is a body that's made out of aluminum. It's on a steel frame, yes, but it's made out of aluminum. I wonder if that's the same price. That would be worth asking my metal guy about. Your shreddable steel is up, stainless down. On your aluminum, siding is up, aluminum copper fin is down, radiators are down, cans are still going up, and rims are still going up, 68 cents a pound now. Sheet aluminum is down, ballasts are staying the same, lead batteries are going down, catalytic converters, most of those are up, so you're seeing a lot of mix and a lot of move in the metal markets here. All right, let's get into the finance for the day. Investors Business Daily. Dow Jones futures tumble. Look for this stock market rally signal. Google, Datadog lead 9 stocks to watch. From Ed Carson. Dow Jones futures tumbled Wednesday, along with S&P 500 futures and NASDAQ futures, with Palantir Technologies jumping on a big Army contract. Oh, that's interesting. The major indices rebounded Tuesday after Monday's sell-off, but the stock market rally attempt is not a confirmed uptrend yet. Google stock, Microsoft, Datadog, ServiceNow, Digital Turbine, Capital One, Dexcom, Revolve, and U-Haul parent Americo are among stocks worth watching. Generally, they're holding above or reclaiming. An advertisement that brings us right back to the top. Their 50-day lines, however, APPS stock is bouncing from its 200-day line, while Google parent Alphabet and Microsoft stock are trying to get back on their 50-day lines, but all have relative strength lines at or near highs. Google, Microsoft, and ServiceNow are on the IBD leaderboard, while Datadog is on the leaderboard watch list. Google, Microsoft, and Now stock are on the IBD long-term leaders. Dexcom stock and Datadog are on the IBD 50. UHAL is Tuesday's IBD stock of the day. Meanwhile, Palantir announced it won an $823 million contract with the U.S. Army. Palantir will deploy the Palantir Gotham platform to support Army intelligence users worldwide with a globally federated intelligence data fabric and an analytics platform spanning multiple security classifications, the company said in a news release. Palantir stock jumped 7% in extended trade. That would push Palantir close to its 50-day and 200-day moving averages. Palantir stock edged up 0.2% to 23.21 on Tuesday. I bet you that's going to go more. Because the magic of no-bid contracts and no-bid products means that now that Palantir is sitting pretty into this, they can charge whatever they want for this, and the taxpayer gets to pay for it. On the on futures rather, Dow futures fell 1% versus fair value. S&P 500 futures lost 1.2%, and Nasdaq 100 futures sold off 1.3%. Oh, I guess BX steel is steel cable sheathed. Huh. Interesting. Thank you. High energy prices are raising inflation and profit margin fears. Also, energy costs on central bank responses to curb inflation could choke off economic growth. That's all taking a toll on Dow futures and markets around the world. Crude oil futures edge lower but are right at multi-year highs. Energy prices in much of the world are skyrocketing above what America is paying. With shortages from the UK to China to India, the 10-year Treasury yield edged up to 1.5%, 1.55%. Rather, right around recent multi-month highs. Remember, overnight action in Dow futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. So that's what we see there. Army intelligence is a contradictory statement. I would think it would be Marine intelligence, wouldn't it? I don't know. That's what they tell me. Most of the Marines I've actually known have actually been pretty intelligent. But I always hear from Army guys that they've got a reputation for being big, dumb walls of meat. And I don't know if it's true. I can't actually say that that's true. I know one Marine who is like the stereotype, but the rest of them actually seem to get it and understand. But I don't know. Maybe that's an Army thing. I don't know. Let's look at Market Watch. Let's, I guess, not look at Market Watch. I guess let's get into the big news of the day. Dumbass that forgot to archive Market Watch. Right here. Alright, before we get started, we're going to do something a little bit fun here. So, I saw this, tacticalreviews.com, when you see it, retweet. So I'm going to pan this out here. I'm going to give you probably about, let's say... Well, I gotta, actually, my allergies are acting up again, so I've actually got to step up for a second. So I'm going to give you a couple minutes here to look at this and see if you can tell me what's wrong with this uniform. So I will be right back with you. Alright, anybody, I don't see anything in the chat yet, but if anybody knows what's wrong with that, we'll circle back to that too. So if you guys want to look at that for a little bit more, we'll see in the chat, but we'll circle back to that. At the end of the show, I will tell you what was wrong with that picture. So let's actually move that over here towards the end of the show. A little bit of a warning for you guys over on Twitch. And I don't want to scare you away from Twitch because obviously Twitch is the one that's paying me. Twitch and a little bit of D-Live, those are the ones that are paying me, but there is a little bit of platform news that I thought should be talked about right at the top here. So, according to Video Games Chronicle, the entirety of Twitch has reportedly been leaked. Source code and user payouts are among the data that were released in a 128 gigabyte torrent. So, if it was me, I would probably change your password if it was me. But looking in at this, an anonymous hacker claims to have leaked the entirety of Twitch, including its source code and user payout information. The user posted a 125 gigabyte torrent linked to 4chan on Wednesday, stating that the leak was intended to foster more disruption and competition in the online video streaming space because their community is a disgusting, toxic cesspool. VGC can verify the files mentioned on 4chan are publicly available to download as described by the anonymous hacker. One anonymous company source told VGC that the leaked data is legitimate, including the source code for the Amazon-owned streaming platform. Internally, Twitch is aware of the breach, the source said. It's believed that the data was obtained as recently as Monday. We've received a requested comment from Twitch and will update the story when it replies. The leaked Twitch data reportedly includes the entirety of Twitch's source code, with comment history going back to its early beginnings. Creator payout reports from 2019, mobile, desktop, and console Twitch clients, proprietary SDKs, and internal AWS services used by Twitch. Every other property that Twitch owns, including IGDB and CurseForge, an unreleased Steam competitor, codenamed Vapor from Amazon Game Studio, Twitch internal red teaming tools designed to improve security by having staff pretend to be hackers. Some Twitter users have started making their way through the 125 gigabytes of information that is leaked, with one claiming that the torrent also included encrypted passwords and recommending that users use two-factor authentication to be safe. Now, as far as this goes, I have not seen this. I found this 5 minutes before we went live. 5 minutes before I hit the live button. So I've known about this for approximately 25 minutes. I don't know. I've not been through any of the data that goes with this. Some of this does. I think this is kind of trying to push people towards doing the two-factor authentication. If you ask me what's actually going on with this. Because sometimes, especially to something like 4chan, they'll stage something like this where they'll come up and say, oh, hey, no, look at the data breach. Now, you better go do your two-factor, because that's like the most important thing to a lot of these websites is to get your two-factor, because then they have access to your cell phone number. And hey, that's the end of the Instagram stream for the day. That's easy enough. So with that, I don't know if this is how this is. One of the things that I've noted, and I took note to this right away off of this, is the leak contains Twitch's source code going all the way back to the beginning. I'm pretty sure the source code for Twitch is public if you hit F12 on it, first and foremost. But second off, I have a feeling that a lot of it's public because Trovo, DLive, and I think a couple others were built on Twitch's source code. Like, they didn't go through on those websites and build those from the ground up and say, oh, hey, this is a new idea that we're going to have for game streaming that has a little bit of limited video on demand availability. These sites, I mean, you look through the source code, you look at the functionality of these sites. They are built on the same platform. They're built on the same basis code as Twitch is. So, I mean, it's not hard to get this source code. This is not as bad of a thing. As far as the source code goes, Turkish gamers can figure that out. But as far as the password thing goes, yeah, they're not recommending you change your passwords. They're recommending you use two-factor authentication. Which makes me nervous as to wondering if there is some sort of farm out there to go and get more people on two-factor and get more of their cell phone numbers. If you do two-factor, I recommend getting a burner phone that's not your primary phone. Something that's powerful enough to get a text message on, and just use that. That's what I did at work when they tried to force me to do two-factor. But that has happened, and I found out about this, like I said, right before we went live. So that's what we see. Coming in, let's actually get into some of the other big news of the day here. Starting in with the finance of the reconciliation. From the Hill, Senate Democrats float filibuster carve-out for debt ceiling. From Jordan Carney. Senate Democrats are discussing creating an exemption from the filibuster for the debt ceiling, even as they acknowledge that it's unclear that they have the support in the caucus for such a move. The idea was brought up during a closed-door caucus lunch on Tuesday. Sources confirmed to The Hill as Democrats try to figure out how to avoid a historic debt default. You could have this done tomorrow. But we won't get a reconciliation bill. Senator Durbin, who told reporters as recently as Monday that there were not active talks, confirmed to the Hill Tuesday that Democrats are now discussing a filibuster carve-out for the debt ceiling. There are discussions, he told the Hill, asked about the status of potential talks. Creating such an exemption would take total unity within the 50-member conference, and Vice President Harris presiding, that's the word I'm looking for, to break the tie, a bar it's not clear Democrats could meet. We have very few options right now, so one of the options clearly is to have a narrow change in the rules, said Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut. Murphy, in an apparent reference to the dynamics within the caucus, added, "I don't know where all my colleagues are." Ben Cardin added that he personally supports changes to the 60-vote filibuster rule, but deferred to leadership about if he thought Democrats could win over Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, two opponents to changing the Senate's filibuster that requires 60 votes for passing the legislation. "I'm telling you it's urgent. We've got to get it done sooner than later," Cardin added about the debt ceiling. Biden asked about a carve-out for the debt ceiling and told CNN that it was a real possibility, man, come on. Democrats have been under growing pressure to nix the legislative filibuster, with the stalemate with Republicans over how to raise the debt ceiling pouring new fuel into those calls. But Manchin indicated to reporters on Monday that he didn't view gutting the filibuster as connected to the fight over the debt ceiling. "The filibuster has nothing to do with the debt ceiling. Basically, we have other tools that we can use, and if we have to use them, we should use them," Manchin said on Monday. Asked about his Democratic colleagues creating an exemption for the filibuster for the debt ceiling, Manchin on Tuesday evenings pointed to Senate leadership. "They've got to work through it. Let the leaders work it out. They should work it out. They both know what this country needs," Manchin told reporters on Tuesday. "Congress has until October 18th to raise the debt ceiling or risk default." Yeah, nothing about cutting spending, but that's just we have to raise the debt ceiling. So they're playing with the rules here, and they're looking at the fact that, and this has been the biggest part, and McConnell said it right out. "Well, if they really want to raise the debt ceiling, they tell us that they don't need us for anything, so they have the tools on the table, they can go do it." And the debt ceiling is a budget reconciliation that would fall under the parliamentary rules as a budget reconciliation bill, as something that directly adds to the budget or subtracts from the budget, which means that would be able to fall outside of the Democratic filibuster if they went to go and use it. But then they can't do their big budget reconciliation and the infrastructure bill fails. And that is an idea that I think is the most terrifying to Democrats in the Senate right now. They worked all this time, they spent all this money to make sure that they got those 50 votes. They spent all that money in Georgia, all that time in Georgia on the runoff to make sure that they got those 50 votes in the Senate, because they were going to cram their agenda down your throat as hard as they could. They were going to cram it down your fucking throat. They blew massive amounts of spending and money off of this, and they're not going to get a goddamn thing done. So that's what we see coming up out of that. Let's grab one from ABC. Parties play with political fire around the debt ceiling. The note. From Rick Klein, Avery Harper, and Quinn Scanlon. The disconnect between what's being said about handling the debt ceiling and what's likely going to have to get done is as wide as ever. And it's not for lack of honesty from congressional leaders about what they intend to do. On Wednesday, barring a major surprise, Senate Republicans will block an effort by Democrats to suspend the debt ceiling through next December. Democrats will accuse them of hypocrisy and worse, with less than 2 weeks of borrowing left before the Treasury Department runs out of cash. They're actually out of borrowing already. I want to correct that on the record from ABC. They ran out of borrowing power in September. I think it was August, actually. But they've already run on borrowing power, so now Yellen's just doing the shell game and moving money around to try and keep it going for a little bit longer. They'll be right on the merits, up to and including the financial calamities that could come if the U.S. can't pay its bills, but that won't change the government reality, even aside from the fact that the talking points and even voting strategies on the subject have reliably flipped along with control of Washington. Focus has been trained on Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell over his absolute refusal to go along with any efforts to authorize additional debt. McConnell, though, is representing the overwhelming, if not unanimous, view inside of his conference. Republicans see this moment as an opportunity to do what they can to stifle the Democrats' agenda, and they're relying on the party in power to do the only responsible thing. This may break norms, but it leaves Democrats with only one real option, using the budget reconciliation process to get around the GOP entirely in what represents a tough political vote for many members. It seems inevitable that Democrats will get there unless or until attempts to shame Republicans into cooperation pay off, or a few minds are changed among Democrats who say they won't change the filibuster rules. Biden, on Tuesday, used a trip to Michigan to remind those watching of the clear majority he won last November, to make the case for the balance of his domestic agenda. Honk honk. Honk honk! Most popular president in history. That was a simple statement of fact, yet the fact that Democrats enjoy majority status means nothing to both parties and is still shaping political rules. The Biden admin is taking a confrontational tone with the GOP governor who has sought to undermine masking guidance in school. So, that's moving on to a completely different story here. But yeah, I mean, there is only one real option. And now these outlets like ABC are now coming out here trying to tell people, do this please, because otherwise our parent companies are going to lose a ton of money. And they are, by the way. But how long have I been saying that that's what they're going to do? How long have they been talking about the debt ceiling? How long have they been saying that Mitch McConnell won't play ball? Because I'm pretty sure it was at the beginning of September when they started talking about this thing. Texas Parole Board recommends posthumous pardon for George Floyd. Fuck that. Yeah, I've been talking about this since the beginning of September when this started to become big news. And I said, okay, McConnell's going to refuse to get on board. Okay, they're going to have to use the budget reconciliation and take it away from their monstrous, massive pork spending bill. That's the problem, and that's the strategy. That's why they're trying to shame these Republicans and Joe Manchin into changing the filibuster rule or going in and doing this kind of stuff, because sitting here right now, they're going to lose everything they worked for because, and as I said on the last article, if they lose this big pork package, then AOC Biscuit and her little buddies and the bipartisan bill as well. And then it's all done. It's all over. The Biden agenda is stalled in the water. It's dead. But we will continue to watch this and see where it goes. From the New York Post. Yellen defends IRS rule requiring banks to report all transactions over $600. From Callie Pattison. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen is defending a Biden admin proposal that would require banks to report data to the IRS on transactions over $600, calling the collection of information routine after taking heat for the idea that is widely seen as an unprecedented invasion of privacy. During an interview on CNN's Squawk Box on Tuesday, Yellen was pressed on whether the IRS has the wherewithal to collect more information about taxpayers and bank accounts, including cash flows, something many Republicans have called invasive. Well, of course they do, Yellen said. Right now, on every bank account that earns more than $10 a year in interest, the bank reports the interest earned to the IRS. That's part of the information base that includes W-2s and reports. Is there a bank account out there that earns more than $10 a year in interest? Interest rates on savings accounts are like 0.0732%. That's part of the information base that includes W-2s and reports on dividends and other income that taxpayers earn, so collection information is routine. Yellen cited the enormous tax gap in the U.S. as the reason behind the proposed tax hikes and information collecting, blaming the gap on places where information on income can be hidden. It's just a few pieces of information about individual bank accounts, nothing at the transaction level that would violate privacy, the secretary said. It's literally on the transaction level. Yo. It is literally on the transaction level. It says it's on the transaction level. Do you know what the language in it says? Banks will have to report under the new law on any transactions over $600. It says transaction in the language. How is that not on the transaction level? The collected information would ostensibly help the Treasury Department determine which high-income wealthy individuals might be concealing transactions and income, and these would be helpful indicators of where it would make sense for auditing to occur, she added. No, it's not about wealthy individuals. Wealthy individuals do not have $600 well, they do, but I mean, they don't do $600 transactions for the most part. They do that with cash on hand. You know who puts $600 in the bank at a time? You and me, when we have our direct deposit done. And they can go in and look at the bank account and say, oh, okay, you did this, you did this, you did this. Oh, hey, you didn't report on this mysterious cash deposit that you made. Where'd you get this money from? If they're doing this stuff, it might be time to start getting some of your money out of the banks and putting it in the mattress. I know it's not an ideal idea because when you have cash in your hand, especially when they're inflating the currency into the level that they are, when you just have cash like that, it loses more value in the mattress than it does in the bank because, like I said, even on your checking account, on most places, you get an infinitesimal, I think I said that word right. Oh, excuse me, I have hiccups. You get an infinitesimal amount of interest on your checking account and a slightly less infinitesimal amount on your savings account. Yes, I understand it's tiny, but it does offset just a teeny tiny bit of the inflation. Not much, but a teeny tiny bit. So it loses value faster in the coffee can that you have buried in your backyard, but not by much. It might be time. It might be time. So that's what we see coming off of that. Let's talk about Joe Biden in Michigan from ABC 12 News out of Flint. President Biden pushes infrastructure plan during mid-Michigan visit. Oh. All they have is a headline. Oh, it's a video, that's why. Okay, let's watch the video. Let's do that. I think that'll be a great idea.
First at 11, President Joe Biden choosing Michigan to address turmoil in Washington over raising the debt limit and passing major infrastructure spending bills. The president addressing guests this afternoon in Howell at a union training center.
It was his first trip to our state since early July. He's stumped for his Build Back Better agenda, consisting of 2 infrastructure packages totaling more than $4 trillion.
Working with the governor and members of the Congress here, we're going to put hardworking Americans like the operating engineers here in Howell on the job to bring back our infrastructure and bring it up to speed.
President Biden says both infrastructure packages are essential to the country's economic growth, especially for middle class and working families. So which projects in the state of Michigan will be funded with the $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill? ABC 12's Rachel Eiler digs deeper into which projects would affect your area. Rachel?
I'll bet everyone in this room can tell me what the most dangerous intersection in this town or any town they live in and where it is. That you hold your breath when you're driving over trying to cross the street. Not a joke.
Tuesday afternoon, President Biden, along with top Michigan politicians, pushed to gain support on his twin economic packages, one that, if passed, would provide the funding needed to update infrastructure conditions.
And I love, by the way, the fact that they're coming out and talking about this. Oh my God, there's a dangerous intersection out there. You guys know what your dangerous intersection is? Come on, man. Come on, dude. It's another tearful. All this kind of stuff should be done at a local level anyway. That's the thing about this. You're sitting here trying to sell us a pig in a poke of, oh, we're going to come down to your locality and we're going to fix the thing that your local government can't do. No. And I've talked about at this point, where I live in Redacted. The road that I take to get to my crappy little tiny apartment in Redacted, they've had to tear open 5 times in 3 years to try and get a water main fixed, and then just left the potholes there until very recently. They actually went back and did something. And I'm considering going in there. I want to run for mayor so I can crack open the books and say, okay, where's our disconnect? What's the problem? The people of Redacted have tasked you with maintaining roadways. That was the agreement between the people who said, okay, yes, we will give you this money in exchange for giving us a fire department, a paramedic department, a police department, and fix the goddamn roads. That was the agreement you had between these two people. That's why they agreed to come and live in this town. They could have lived anywhere else. But that's the agreement that you've had. Why is it taking so fucking long? But that's what we see coming up out of that. Unfortunately, Mr. Biden did not do very well on his trip up there. Reading from Yahoo News. Let's get the chat up here, just in case I kept the microphone off. You guys will tell me that, right? Right? Where's that line? Michigan Trump supporters line streets chanting, "Fuck Joe Biden." This comes from the Washington Examiner via Yahoo News. From Matthew Miller. Residents sporting mega apparel on Howell in Michigan gave President Joe Biden a rude awakening on Tuesday.
There's the president. There he is.
Most popular president in history.
All the Trump people here. There's all the other people here.
Let's go, Brandon! I wonder who Brandon is in this context, in this situation. Fuck Joe Biden could be heard in a crowd as President's motorcade drove by. A crowd member was even seen giving the middle finger as the car passed. "We the people are pissed off," one sign read, held by a woman reads.
Okay, we're at the Biden rally, but it looks like it's more of a Trump rally, really. How are you? Yes. People are not happy here.
We are not happy here.
They're not happy.
We shall be coming here.
This is Howell, and this is you can see some of the stuff we can't show on television, these signs, but there we go.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, Charlie.
You see the
Hey, Charlie.
signs there, the flags, and the people here, and this is where Biden is going to be speaking, just over there. But it's obviously a very excited crowd here. Obviously not particularly popular and fans of Biden.
Yes, I understand the irony of the yellow Gadsden flag where people are worshiping Trump. I do understand the irony there. I get it. I understand that. But yes, he got this again. This Brandon guy, this got to be a popular guy. It's got to be the new racing chant, right? Let's go, Brandon. More video of this here from Jewish Deplorable. From a car. Honk honk, most popular president in U.S. history. Honk honk. More popular than even Barack Obama. More votes than Barack Obama, right there. This guy. And I mean, it's not like we haven't seen this kind of activity before. In between the looting and the burning that we saw in American cities last year, What did we hear? What did we hear all throughout the streets? You know, you get one guy up there starting to scream, Black Lives Matter! Or, say her name, Breonna Taylor! I mean, it's not, it's even the same melody and the chants. So, I would be interested to see where the mainstream media tries to tell us that this is terroristic. Especially when buildings don't tend to burn when we start to see this kind of thing. But what we saw out of the, how do we euphemize this so we don't get kicked off YouTube? Out of the celebrations of life for these members of the African American community who happen to have altercations with police, that just happened to need to light up buildings up for heat. That's what they were doing. It was for heat. It was to make sure they didn't get too cold in the night. I don't know. Don't ban me, Susan. One more on this story here from Michigan Live. Fuck Biden signs outside Michigan presidential visit were embarrassing, says Congresswoman. Oh. From Malachi Barrett. President Biden saw a clear message from the window of his motorcade. No, they didn't let him see that. Mr. President, look over here, look. I have an airplane. It's a bird, Just don't look out the window. Look at the bird. Fuck Biden was visible on flags and signs carried by a crowd of protesters gathered along M59 in Livingston County, a deeply conservative part of the state. U.S. Rep. Alyssa Slotkin of Holly said she was embarrassed by the profane messages as she sat next to the president, who pointed out the signs as they passed by the rally. He said, "Hey, aren't we next to a school?" Slotkin said. No, I'm not talking about the signs, man. Come on, I'm talking about, hey, I need a sniff. Are we next to a school, man? Come on. I pointed out to him, the school to him, and he said, "Guess I'm still surprised when people, even if they don't like me, are willing to be that profane around children. They need to stay innocent, because otherwise they don't smell good." Sure enough, Voyager Elementary is situated along M59, and Northwest Elementary School is only a block away from the road. It's just sad. It's just a sad moment when someone can stand blocks from a school with a sign using that kind of profanity, Slotkin said. Demonstrators lined the highway leading to the International Union of Operating Engineers and Construction Career Center, where Biden was set to speak. Pro-Trump messages were strewed along the roadway, including large signs reading, "Trump won." Biden lost Livingston County by 23 points in 2020, though he won Michigan by 154,000 votes, honk honk. The former president continued to claim fraud that cost him the election through the audits, court decisions, and investigation by Republicans in the state legislature have yielded no evidence to back up his assertions, honk honk. Honk honk, wink wink. The rally was organized by the Livingston County Republican Party and Moms for Liberty. Michigan Republican Party co-chair Michonne Maddock was advertised as an attendee. "It's so embarrassing! Why would they say bad things about the president because he's not orange? They should only say bad things, and I've said horrible things about the orange man, but he's evil and orange. He's the less intelligent version of Goebbels. We have to say bad things about him." Fucking spare me. And to take it even worse, here's another one for you guys. From U.S. News and World Report. DOJ to investigate threats against school board members. From Lauren Camera. The Department of Justice will mobilize the FBI in response to a spike in harassment, intimidation, and threats of violence against school board members across the country. In a memorandum released Monday evening, AG Merrick Garland directed the FBI and U.S. Attorney's offices to meet in the next 30 days with federal, state, and local law enforcement leaders to outline strategies for addressing the incidents which have become more frequent and more volatile in recent months. Threats against public servants are not only illegal, they run counter to our nation's core values. George, Ben, and Thomas would like a word with you. Garland wrote in a memorandum released Monday evening, "Those who dedicate their time and energy to ensuring that our children receive a proper education in a safe environment deserve to be able to do their work without fear for their safety." The announcement comes just days after the groups representing the country's school boards wrote to President Biden to plead for federal assistance in responding to mounting threats and violence that they likened to domestic terrorism. Oh my God, it's domestic terrorism! Whatever shall we do? People are coming in here and they have ideas counter to what it is that we have to say. What are we going to do? Oh my God. Against school board members related to their decisions on COVID-19, public school safety policies, critical race theory, and more. In recent months, there has been a disturbing spike in the harassment, intimidation, and threats of violence against school administrators, board members, teachers, and staff who participate in the vital work of running our nation's public schools, Garland wrote. While spirited debate about policy matters is protected under the Constitution. Yeah, I would stop right there and just come back off and don't say another thing. But they're not going to do that. The protection does not extend to threats of violence or efforts to intimidate individuals based on their views. According to the memorandum, the Justice Department will launch a series of efforts in the coming days designed to address the rise in criminal conduct directed towards school personnel. A task force, which is set to include representatives from the Justice Department's Criminal Division, National Security Division, Civil Rights Division, the Executive Office for the U.S. Attorneys, and the FBI, and more, will determine how federal enforcement tools can be used to prosecute the threats and crimes, and ways to assist state and local law enforcement where threats of violence may not constitute federal crimes. This right here is fucking disgusting. This is disgusting. This is the federal government coming in here and trying to tell localities what it is that they can and can't do. Now, I do have to point out, and I have to posit the question here. Why is this coming to this, first off? And you know, what's going to happen to some of these people? Why now? And I actually have to wonder if some of this isn't a little bit of strategy to come out here and try to make sure that some of these people aren't going to go and run for school board. Because there are a lot of seats that go unopposed year over year that are about to get they're about to get people running against them. And some of these people might actually make it onto the school board unless there's federal intervention. And what's going to be the threshold? That's going to be the next thing. I mean, we've seen with the Selfie Fest that there's a pretty high threshold, or a low threshold to get to be a federal criminal on something. I mean, you could stand in front of a police officer, a Capitol Police officer, and take a selfie. You could do that. And because the FBI pinged your phone at the location, you're suddenly a domestic terrorist and you're sitting in solitary confinement without having any charges brought forward against you. So I'm really, really wary of watching where this is going to go, because stuff like this doesn't end well. It doesn't. Stuff like this does not end well. But that's what we see off of that. Reading from the New York Post in response to this. Parents take a stand against FBI crackdown on CRT opponents. From Kelly Pattison. Parents and politicians are slamming the Department of Justice's decision to bring on an FBI to investigate a spike in threats against school administrators, board members, teachers, and staff, saying the Biden admin is likening their protests of woke policies such as critical race theory, as well as mandatory mask wearing, to domestic terrorism. Dear at the Justice Department, Merrick Garland and FBI Director Christopher Wray. Asra Nomani, Vice President of the Investigations and Strategy at Parents Defending Education, posted on Twitter. This is what domestic terrorists look like. You're criminalizing parenting, and you owe the people of America a swift apology. She sarcastically signed the missive, Domestic Terrorist Asra Nomani. Well, I wouldn't have sent that if it was me, because that actually gives them probable cause to drag your ass in. Nomani's group has been researching how school boards across the U.S. implement woke ideas into curricula such as critical race theory. In recent months, dozens of parents have taken a stand in school board meetings against the teaching of critical race theory in classrooms to protect mask mandates, causing some to wonder what the FBI and DOJ are actually investigating. The DOJ move was spurred on by the National School Boards Association asking the Biden admin for assistance, suggesting there have been threats and acts of violence and equating those to domestic terrorism. In a separate tweet, Nomani claimed Attorney General Merrick Garland issued a declaration of war on parents when he announced the initiative on Monday. She's not wrong. I mean, I don't want to go down that road because it's not going to end well for either side. And I'm pretty much as anti-war as I can get, but I mean, she's not wrong either. I can't sit here and say that this is not a declaration of war. This is. Another parent, Nicole Solis from Rhode Island, accused the FBI of being the politics police, while claiming any legitimate violence is already sufficiently addressed by your local police. Yes, that too. Arrest me, she said in another tweet. In a memo released Monday, Garland announced that while a spirited debate about policy matters is protected under our Constitution, which you use to wipe your ass with, that protection does not extend to threats or violence or efforts to intimidate individuals based on their views. The investigation will be looking into the recent spike of acts of violence against school staff members. However, Garland's memo did not specify what those acts were. Yeah, and you and I, you, dear listener, sit here and listen to the news every single day. We sit here and we talk about the news every day. I'm going to tell you right now, if there was a local instance of major violence against a school board member during a school board meeting, we'd cover it. You know how I know that? Because we've covered the ones where they got rowdy and loud. If there was a major, and I don't want to put political parties into it, but we actually do have to put political parties into it because the news media would do this. If there was a major instance where a guy in a red hat walked into a school board meeting and started fucking swinging and started punching, that's front page news for weeks and weeks and weeks on months on end. I know, it took a week to get the one where they got loud and rowdy, but not violent, out of the news cycle. That's months of news if somebody from a red hat comes in and knocks out the school board president. But that's what we go with that. That's some scary shit, dude. All right, let's talk just a bit about what's going on here with the Facebook thing. Frances Haugen tweets out, I'll be testifying to the Senate tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, 7 a.m. Pacific Time about Instagram and Facebook's impacts on children and society at large. You can watch me here. I want to go over this woman's profile, though, because I want to point something out with this. This is Frances Haugen, who is the mysterious whistleblower that everybody went back and listened to yesterday, except for me. I didn't listen to it. But this is the whistleblower. But look at some of the details here. Olin College, Harvard, HBS alumna, Iowan, data scientist, press at franceshaugen.com. So she's already got a press page. She's got her own webpage, franceshaugen.com. Joined October of 2021. which means she's only joined Twitter in the last 6 days. 53.8 thousand followers and a blue checkmark before she ever did her testimony, by the way. A blue checkmark before the testimony, she's already verified. Oh, Arvolt's doing some digging. Yeah. Yes, already verified, already 54,000 followers, and already blue checkmark before she even had her testimony. Now, I can't verify that she was blue checkmark before her testimony. I am taking that off of hearsay from Jen the Libertarian, but I didn't have Jen's tweet, so I couldn't do the timestamp against that. But yeah, she pointed that out, that this woman's been on Twitter for 48 hours, already has a blue checkmark. Let's read some of that here. Starting with CBS's 60 Minutes. Whistleblower, Facebook is misleading the public on progress against hate speech, violence, and misinformation. Her name is Frances Haugen. That is a fact that Facebook has been anxious to know since the last month when an anonymous former employee filed complaints with the federal law enforcement. The complaints say Facebook's own research shows that it amplifies hate, misinformation, and political unrest, but the company hides what it knows. One complaint alleges that Facebook's Instagram harms teenage girls. What makes Haugen's complaints unprecedented is the trove of private Facebook research she took when she quit in May. The documents appeared first last month in the Wall Street Journal, but tonight Frances Haugen is revealing her identity to explain why she became a Facebook whistleblower. The thing I saw on Facebook over and over again was there were conflicts of interest between what was good for the public and what was good for Facebook. And Facebook over and over again chose to optimize for its own interests, like making more money. Haugen is 37, which means she's the same age as I am. A data scientist from Iowa with a degree in computer engineering and a Harvard master's degree in business. For 15 years, she's worked for companies including Google and Pinterest. I've seen a bunch of social networks, and it was substantially worse at Facebook than anything I'd ever seen before. You know, someone else might have just quit and moved on. I wonder why you took this stand. Imagine if you know what's going on inside Facebook and you know no one on the outside knows. I knew my future looked like if I continued to stay inside of Facebook, which is person after person after person has tackled inside this Facebook and ground themselves into the ground. When and how did it occur that you take all these documents out of the company? At some point in 2021, I realized, okay, I'm going to have to do this in a systemic way. I have to get out enough that no one can question that this is real. She secretly copied tens of thousands of pages of Facebook internal research. She says evidence shows that the company is lying to the public about making significant progress against hate, violence, and misinformation. One study she found from this year says, we estimate that we may action as little as 3 to 5% of hate and about 0.6% of violence and incitement on Facebook, despite being the best in the world at it. To quote from one of the documents you brought out, we have evidence that a variety of sources that hate speech, divisive political speech, and misinformation on Facebook and the family of apps are affecting societies around the world. When we live in an information environment that is full of angry, hateful, polarizing content that erodes our civic trust, it erodes our faith in each other, it erodes our ability to want to care for each other. The version of Facebook that exists today is tearing our societies apart and causing ethnic violence around the world. Ethnic violence, including Myanmar in 2018, when the military used Facebook to launch a genocide. So this is the Senate testimony, the House testimony. This is just what she said on 60 Minutes. And I mean, we're not going to do the 13-minute, 37-second video for that, obviously, but I'm actually going to sit down and listen to this whole thing myself because there is some juicy stuff here. But we have more going on here. Whistleblower Frances Haugen calls Facebook danger to children and democracy. From Libby Cathy. A Senate subcommittee on Tuesday heard from a whistleblower who claims Facebook manipulated content and knew it was harmful to youngsters. A day after the social media giant experienced an apparently unrelated massive outage. Frances Haugen, who revealed her identity during a Sunday interview on CBS's 60 Minutes, has been cooperating with Senate Commerce Subcommittee as part of its ongoing efforts to assess potential regulation of the platform. Haugen told lawmakers on Tuesday about documentation she said show the company and CEO Mark Zuckerberg intentionally ignore proof of its potentially harmful impact on users. Facebook has publicly refuted Haugen's claims. So, little short one coming off of this. Some video to go along with this. Facebook whistleblower Frances Haugen. Yesterday's we saw Facebook get taken off the internet. I don't know why it went down, but I know for more than 5 hours Facebook wasn't used to deepen divides, destabilize democracies, and make young girls and women feel bad about their bodies. Let's listen to what she had to say here.
Yesterday, we saw Facebook get taken off the internet. I don't know why it went down, but I know that for more than 5 hours, Facebook wasn't used to deepen divides, destabilize democracies, and make young girls and women feel bad about their bodies. Yesterday, we saw Facebook get taken.
Yeah, there's that. That got done. Let's grab... Here are 4 key points from the Facebook whistleblower's testimony on Capitol Hill. This is from our friend Bobby Allen over at NPR. And remember, NPR, they need your money. They need your time. They need you to donate everything that you have because it's not your money, comrade. It's our money. The taxpayer funding is not enough. Make sure that you donate our money, comrade, to NPR, so they can continue to spread the communist ideals around the world. NPR, National Progressive Radio. Let's see what they have to say. Facebook is facing a historic crisis. Revelations brought to light from whistleblower Frances Haugen, a former data scientist at Facebook, has led to what may be the most threatening scandal in the company's history. The pressure was turned up on Tuesday when Haugen testified before a Senate subcommittee. She provided a clear and detailed glimpse inside the notoriously secretive tech giant. She said Facebook harms children, sows division, and undermines democracy in pursuit of breakneck growth and astronomical profits. Past controversies over Facebook's role in Russian attempts to influence the 2016 election and social networks' lax handling of user data in the Cambridge Analytica case were crises that rocked the company and spurred internal reform. But the fury that Haugen's revelations have set off is different. Here are 4 reasons why. Number 1, Haugen was an insider, making her a powerful critic. Haugen worked at Facebook for nearly 2 years after stints at Google, Yelp, and Pinterest. At Facebook, she studied how the social network's algorithm amplified misinformation and was exploited by foreign adversaries. Haugen told Congress that Facebook consistently chose to maximize its growth rather than implement safeguards on its platforms, just as it hid from the public and government officials internal research that illuminated the harms of Facebook products. The results have been more division, more harm, more lies, more threats, and more combat. In some cases, this dangerous online talk has led to actual violence that harms and even kills people, Haugen testified. Research shows Facebook coveted young users despite health concerns. A particular concern to lawmakers on Tuesday was Instagram's impact on young children. Haugen has leaked one of Facebook's studies that found that 13.5% of UK teen girls in one survey say their suicidal thoughts became more frequent. Another leaked study found that 17% of teen girls say their eating disorders got worse after using Instagram. About 32% of teen girls said that when they felt bad about their bodies, Instagram made them feel worse. Facebook's researchers found, which was first reported by the Journal. Marsha Blackburn of Tennessee accused Facebook of intentionally targeting children under 13 with an addictive product, despite the app requiring users be 13 years or older. Well, Pornhub requires you to be 18 years or older, and yet that's really also targeted for people who are much, much younger. Don't laugh, you know it's true. Democrats and Republicans are actually united on regulating Facebook, and there it is, right there. This goes along with what I wanted to say after this article here, But this is the big point of this, and this is part of why I have to wonder if this is such a big technology company that knows so much about you, how this woman slept through the cracks, unless there's an actual reason that they're doing this here. At one moment in the hearing, Senator Jerry Moran of Kansas turned Richard Blumenthal of Connecticut. Moran said they should put aside their partisan differences and tackle a common goal, reining in Facebook. On such regulation, Blumenthal said, "Our differences are very minor." "I share that view," Moran replied. Later during a press conference, Blumenthal referenced the bipartisan unity at the hearing. All right, what's this other Facebook? Haugen says Facebook broke the law. Haugen's lawyers have filed 8 complaints with the Securities and Exchange Commission focused on Facebook's public statements about issues including what Facebook knew about how organizers of the Capitol Selfie Fest used its platform, how effective it is as removing hate speech, and how Instagram makes body image issues worse. According to Haugen's legal team, Facebook executives, including CEO Mark Zuckerberg, misstated and omitted key details about what is known about Facebook and Instagram's ability to cause harm. Attorneys for Haugen alleged that Facebook violated the U.S. securities law by lying to investors. And there it is. There are your 4 takeaways. But this is the big one right here. And I knew this was coming, especially as soon as I saw this one here. Disclosed TV comes out. New. Facebook calls for standard rules for the internet after whistleblower hearing. Director of Policy Communications, Lena Piech, has issued an official response to the allegations made by former Facebook product manager Frances Haugen. Today, a Senate Commerce Subcommittee held a hearing with a former product manager at Facebook who worked for the company for less than 2 years, had no direct reports, never attended a decision point meeting with C-level executives, and testified more than 6 times to not working on the subject matter in question. Piech said, "We don't agree with her characterization of the many issues that she testified about. Despite all this, we agree on one thing. It's time to begin to create standard rules for the internet. It's been 25 years since the rules for the internet have been updated, and instead of expecting the industry to make societal decisions that belong to legislators, it's time for Congress to act." There it is, right there. That's the big part of this right here. It's that they can't get Congress to make the rules that come back off in their favor. So now they're going to use this out here to get Soccer Mom America on board with the two. "Oh my God, my daughter is doing bad things on Instagram. We need to crack down on these people." And Facebook sits here and says, yes, please crack down on us. Make rules. Because once you start federalizing the internet, you start to decide who can and cannot be on it. Once you start making the rules of the road for the internet, Dangerous Bill over here, who has a Gadsden flag and a big wad of chew in his mouth, who likes to go online and write "fuck Joe Biden," is no longer suitable for the internet or polite society. You get to decide who gets to be in and out of polite society. Now, yes, I know that these laws are being done as a demonstration of, okay, let's go regulate the big social media companies. Let's go do this. But we have to have common rules of the internet. So they can't go to Gab, and they can't go to Minds, and they can't go to these other places, or Parler or anything else like that, and go spread their hate. Do you see what this is? Because I saw this. Especially if they're tested, and if this is true, that's what gets me. If this is true, and this is a woman who had no direct decision point meetings with C-level executives, she was just mysteriously able to go in and take all these documents without a problem. She was able to go copy them. Because even though Facebook is so secretive about everything that they do, she could just go in and copy all these documents. I smell a fucking rat here. I smell an underhanded attempt to crack down on your freedom of speech. Yes, you can still go yell in town square, but, oh, you're not fit for the internet. No, you have dangerous ideas. You can't go on the internet. You can't do this. This is scary shit. But like clockwork, it's here. All right, let's shift gears here. Let's talk about Veritas. So we'll watch a little bit of the Veritas video for this. I don't think we'll do the whole thing. But according to Real Clear Politics Pfizer scientists to Project Veritas, your antibodies are probably better than the vaccination. Let's listen.
Power, Deception, Propaganda. A new book by James O'Keefe.
COVID vaccine.
When somebody is naturally immune, like they got COVID, they probably have better, like not better, but more antibodies against the virus. Because what the vaccine is like I said, that protein that's just on the outside. So it's just one antibody against one specific part of the virus. When you actually get the virus, you're going to start producing antibodies against like multiple pieces of the virus. And not only just like that outside portion, like the inside portion, the actual virus. So your antibodies are probably better at that point than the vaccination.
But don't take his word for it. 2 other Pfizer scientists echo the same sentiment.
So I mean, well protected?
Yeah.
Like as much as the vaccine?
Probably more.
How so? Like how much more?
You're protected most likely for longer, since it was a natural response.
We're like bred and taught to be like vaccine is safer than actually getting COVID. You cannot like talk about this like in public. If you have antibodies built up, like you should be able to prove that you have those built up.
I mean, I still feel like I work for like an evil corporation. We're trying to keep track of everyone that's been vaccinated versus the census of how many people are actually reported. Basically, our organization is run on COVID money now. You don't talk about any.
So, and I mean, there's a lot of stuff to go on with that, and a lot of stuff to see with that. It's quite interesting to talk and to hear the people talking about this, and the fact that I might work for an evil organization. I might do that. And this is one of the big things that has really bothered me about this entire thing from the start, is the fact that, you know, the big pharma, they were the enemies of the left forever. And people keep harping on that, but it's true. Big pharma was the enemy of the left for the majority of my adult life. Let's do whatever we can to take down big pharma. We talked about this with the Family Guy PSA. When we listened to Brian and Stewie talk about how safe the vaccine was. Family Guy had an episode shortly after they went into high def. They had an episode where they broke into Carter's compound. They broke into Carter Peterschmidt's compound and found that he had the cure for cancer. And Carter Peterschmidt said, "Yes, but my buddies at Big Pharma can make even more money off treating cancer than curing cancer. So that's why we continue to go with treating it, because it's a big money pit." Family Guy was an anti-Big Pharma thing, and now they're singing the lines for Big Pharma. These kids are singing the lines for Big Pharma. Whatever it is that they want to do. Whatever Big Pharma wants to do. Another booster shot. A variation on the drug that shall not be named. A variation on the other drug that shall not be named. Monoclonal antibodies. They're all making bank off of this. Follow the money. And it's the same thing with the MAGA people who are coming out and say, "I don't need to get this vaccine. I'll just go out and get me some monoclonal antibodies from, oh God, Ron DeSantis." Well, that's going right into the pockets of Big Pharma too. So what's the fucking trade-off here? Thank you, James O'Keefe, for that. Shifting gears here again, let's talk about upcoming politics here. Newsweek. Mike Pence, Mitt Romney, lead poll for 2024 Republican presidential candidate, but only if Trump doesn't run. Let's get a live chat up here. From Benjamin Fear Now. Vice President Mike Pence, Utah Senator Mitt Romney, and Fox News host Tucker Carlson are among the top hopefuls to wage a 2024 Republican Party presidential run, but only if President Trump decides not to run in 4 years. Even though Trump is still refusing to concede or acknowledge his loss to President-elect Joe Biden this month, pollsters are already looking ahead to 2024 for some idea of how the GOP may shake out in the coming 4 years. A Ledger 360 poll conducted this week found name recognition was clearly favored. Among top 2024 presidential hopefuls, Pence garnered the support of 26% of 1,003 survey respondents, who placed him as their first choice for the 2024 Republican presidential primary. Honk honk. And I'll talk about that in just a second. If Trump runs in 2024, he's the clear GOP frontrunner, with Romney coming in second place, honk honk, as potential challengers to Biden 4 years from now. Romney trails Pence with the Ledger 360 poll with 22%, and trailing further down the list are Texas Senator Ted Cruz, former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley, and Ohio Governor John Kasich. You notice a pattern among these people? Pence, Romney, not as much Cruz, but I think he's got some leanings to this inside of there too. But then Haley and Kasich. You notice a pattern among these people? They're all neocon, warhawk loving fucking pigs. Every fucking goddamn last one of them. Everyone. But I'm also amazed by this, looking at this here. When we look at this, Mike Pence. Mike Pence is so popular among the Trump Republicans out there that they had to go out into the Capitol and chant his names. This kind of splits among your narrative here, Newsweek, doesn't it? Because, I mean, they were chanting Mike Pence's name in the Capitol. They think he's so popular. Well, they tried to tell us he was chanting something else, or they were chanting something else in the crowd, but, I still don't buy that either. But, yeah, as far as Pence goes, no, nobody wants Pence to be president. Nobody wants Romney to be president. There are a few people out there that don't want Romney to be alive anymore. I will not confirm nor deny that I am one of them. Nikki Haley would take us right into a fucking war, and so will Kasich. Cruz probably would too, actually. I'm not going to lie. So, no, none of these people are leading the poll for 2024 Republican presidential candidate. But I'm willing to bet that this is another way that they can come out and put out the polls and say, hey, look, college students, look how evil these people are, because we're going to throw them under the bus. From Yahoo News. Mike Pence says the January 6th selfie fest where rioters attacked him and Congress is being used to demean Trump supporters. From Grace Panetta. Former Vice President Mike Pence accused the media of covering the January 6th selfie fest, a mostly peaceful attack on Congress, and on him personally to distract from the Biden admin and demean all Trump voters. I know the media wants to distract from the Biden admin's failed agenda by focusing on one day in January, Pence said in a Monday night interview with Fox News' Sean Hannity. The fact that Hannity is putting him on means that Hannity should not be trusted. They want to use that one day to try and demean the character and intentions of 74 million Americans who believed we could be strong again and prosperous again and supported our administration in 2016 and 2020, he added. For our part, I truly believe we ought to remain completely focused on the future, and that's where I'm focused, Pence said in what may have been a nod to his 2024 presidential aspirations. No! During the selfie fest, rioters waged a mostly peaceful demonstration on Congress and on Pence to try and stop them from counting President-elect Joe Biden's electoral college votes. No, they mostly did this. Affirming President Donald Trump's election loss, with some rioters that were totally not federal agents chanting "Hang Mike Pence" after Trump posted numerous tweets attacking Pence. The recount tweets out, maybe Pence thought the insurrectionists he's defending were yelling, hang with Mike Pence. Kind of curious to listen to this.
So I know the media wants to distract from the Biden administration's failed agenda by focusing on one day in January. They want to use that one day to try and demean the character and intentions of 74 million Americans who believed we could be strong again and prosperous again and supported our administration in 2016 and 2020. But for our part, I truly believe we all ought to remain completely focused on the future. That's where I'm focused, and I really do believe.
All right, so that's what they see. So yeah, that's what we're seeing off of this, and I do think, and I've noticed other things that go along with this, including people are talking about the fact, and I wasn't able to verify this one specifically, but they're also talking about the fact that now Pence is under investigation for the January 6th selfie fest by the congressional board as well. So there's a lot of stuff going off with that on top of everything else. All right, one more on the selfie fest from the Washington Post. This is an op-ed. This is not a green check verified article. The revelations about Mike Pence's role in January 6th keep getting worse. From Greg Sargent. It has become a ubiquitous question in our politics. How close did Donald Trump come to pulling off an actual coup? Efforts to grapple with this have been trapped largely in the zone of wild speculation. But guess what? We may actually get a real answer to it soon enough. Key to this is the figure who's been portrayed as a hero of the sordid tale because he refused to use his position as vice president to interrupt the count of electors in Congress, Mike Pence. This remains poorly understood, but the January 6th Select Committee is not just looking into the mob attack. It will also create a detailed account of how close we came to the unthinkable, the procedural overthrow of a legitimately elected incoming government. Honk! Honk! The true contours of this emerge from a New York Times, a former newspaper, excavation into the role of John Eastman, the lawyer who wrote the Trump coup memo. It outlined... I can't fucking read this. You know the worst part of it is? Little fucking leftoids will gobble this bullshit up. Like it's reality. Like this isn't some political novel that was written by Mitch Rapp. No, Mitch Rapp is the character. Vince Flynn. I'm sorry, Vince Flynn. Like, we'll learn about the tunnels under the White House and the types of weapons that people were carrying. That's what this reads of. All right, that's what we see coming out of that. I cannot read this anymore. There's more information here. I've got the archive for it. I can put it in the Discord, but I can't fucking read this anymore. It's disgusting. All right, from the Daily Wire, what do we got left for time? I think we can get through most of this. Watch CNN grills Democrat candidate Matthew Dowd over why he deleted thousands of tweets. I don't know, why does anybody delete tweets? Because they're running for office and they think it'll get used against them. CNN host Brianna Keilar grilled Texas Lieutenant Governor candidate Matthew Dowd, D, over former Republican strategist running as a Democrat during an interview on Monday over why he deleted hundreds of thousands of tweets right before announcing that he was running for office. Dowd claimed that was a conspiracy theory conjured up by Fox News before almost immediately admitting he deleted up to 270,000 old tweets. Cleaning up my files long before I even thought about running for this race, he claimed, but again, it's typical Fox thing to turn to some conspiracy, thinking it has more to do than it actually does. Let's listen.
Matthew, you're well aware you're being attacked by Republicans and Fox for deleting thousands of tweets. How many tweets did you delete?
I don't know. I think what I did was, and this was long before, this is funny about Fox, who looks for anything to sort of come up with some conspiracy theory, as they do. Earlier in the summer, I thought I have 260,000 tweets that have just been accumulated. I just decided to go through and delete all of my old tweets, whatever it happened to be. So there's no conspiracy thing
But
here.
why?
It's just cleaning up my files long before I even thought about running in this race. But again, it's a typical Fox thing to turn to some conspiracy, thinking it has more meaning than it actually does.
Why did you?
All right, and I'm willing to bet that if we go back through these tweets, because he was a Republican strategist, I'm willing to bet if we go back and look through all these tweets, we're going to find out that he was railing against Democrats and Democrat voters at some point here. It wasn't necessarily out there that he was that he was saying things he was ashamed of. It's the fact that people will go back through there and they'll tell the voters what he thinks of them, and I think he's deathly afraid of that. So, yeah, I think that's why he went back off and did this. And I'm going to tell you right now, if I ever run for president, in spite of the fact that I have gone on Twitter and I have called the MAGA people idiots and retards, that I've railed against the progressive left on Twitter, I'm not deleting my tweets. I don't care what strategist tells me to do so. I'm not deleting my tweets. I'm going to tell you exactly what I think about you. And if you want me to think differently of you, do better. The world would explode if I ran for president. They'd be so pissed. A guy who isn't a millionaire is running for president? Oh no! From the New York Post, John Kerry says Biden not aware sub-deal with Australia would irk France. Report. Why is this dude still working in the White House? That dude was old when I was a kid and he ran for president the last time. And he's worked for 2 administrations since then. United States climate envoy John Kerry claimed Tuesday that President Biden had no idea the US-UK-Australia submarine deal would upset the French government and had not been aware of what transpired as Secretary of State Antony Blinken visited Paris to ease the diplomatic tensions. Kerry, the Secretary of State in the Obama admin, was asked in an interview on French television about the Biden admin forging the agreement with Australia, even though France had already had a $40 billion deal with Australia for 12 submarines. President Biden asked me about it, and I told him and expressed, Kerry said, according to the National Review. You told Joe Biden that it was not right, the interviewer said. He asked me, he said, what's the situation? And I explained exactly. He had not been aware of that. He literally had not been aware of what had transpired, Kerry said in a Monday interview. I don't want to go into the details of it, but suffice it to say, my president, is very committed to strengthening the relationship and making sure that this is a small event of the past and moving on to much, much more important futures. More important futures like the future that I have with caviar. Kerry is in Paris with Secretary of State Antony Blinken this week to smooth the ruffled feathers of French officials because of the submarine deal after the French officials called it a stab in the back. And I'm sure he's there to drink French champagne and French wine and eat French caviar and French seafood and all kinds of other French stuff here because he's filthy fucking rich. And the progressives love him because he's gonna save the climate. What else do we have? Supreme Court rules in favor of Donald Trump's plan to use $3.6 billion for the border wall, from Megan Roos. The Supreme Court on Monday advised the lower court to reconsider earlier decisions that blocked an estimated $3.6 billion from being used for construction of the U.S.-Mexico border wall, championed by former President Donald Trump. After taking office in January, President Biden has sought to halt the funding for the border wall construction that was pushed by his predecessor. The Biden admin had argued that the Supreme Court did not need to weigh in on the border wall funding case because the project was closed down by the new administration. But the court's Monday ruling called for a reassessment of the case given the new circumstances under which the project is being considered with a different administration in the White House. The Supreme Court returned the case to the U.S. District Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit with instructions to direct the District Court to vacate its judgments, the Supreme Court wrote in its Monday order. The District Court should consider what further proceedings are necessary and appropriate in the light of changed circumstances in this case. The Supreme Court added the court did not provide an explanation for its decision beyond mentioning the change in circumstances under which the case has been considered. Key to the arguments surrounding the future of the border wall's construction is the funding sources Trump administration directed to support it. Billions in military funding were allocated to the project during Trump's time in office, with the wall's 400th mile celebrated by the former president just days before he left the White House. So, once again, the gigantic panic attack that the mainstream media told you that the Trump administration did illegally wound up being legal after all. From the Hill. New poll finds that 1 in 3 say they might consider abolishing or limiting the Supreme Court. From Michael Schnell. 1 in 3 U.S. adults say in a new poll that they might support abolishing or limiting the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court in certain circumstances. The survey, released Monday and conducted by the Annenberg Public Policy Center at the University of Pennsylvania, found that 34% of respondents would consider abolishing the Supreme Court if it started issuing rulings that most Americans disagreed with. 65% of respondents say they would not support such a move. But see, this many people supported abolishing it makes a better headline. 2/3 of your country think that this is a good idea and it's a good way to keep the government in check and in rein. It's not, but 2/3 of your people think that it is. In fact, it's mostly been used to grow and expand government. But it also knocks and kicks in the balls of the Congress when they try to pass an unconstitutional law. And yes, it should be limited in its scope, by the way, because the Supreme Court, like many other major government edifices, was only meant to deal with interstate commerce, not to make laws that directly affect you on and of itself. But they're going to try and push-pull this thing because we have a majority on the courts that we don't like and we need to do something about it. Do something! Next story. From the New York Post. Marine Stuart Scheller to be released from the brig after ripping botched Afghan pullout in viral video. From Sam Chamberlain. A Marine who was sent to military prison weeks after demanding accountability for the botched U.S. pullout from Afghanistan was to be released Tuesday, the Marine Corps confirmed. Marine Training and Education Command spokesperson Captain Sam Stevenson said in a statement that Lieutenant Colonel Stuart Scheller would be allowed out as a result of mutual agreement between Scheller and his defense counsel and the Commanding General Training Command. Stevenson did not provide details of the agreement or the timing of Scheller's release. So, he came out, he spoke out against the pullout, which did violate military law. Nobody's going to question, and that's part of the reason he's being released, I guarantee it. Nobody's going to question the law anymore, which needs to be questioned more than anything else, the fact that the law is in place. Nobody's going to question that, but he's going to be out and everybody's going to forget that he ever existed. This story, according to the mainstream media, is now closed, even though it's far from closed. Why is there a gag order on military people? Your freedom of speech is being suppressed, but this is the best way to keep people from coming out and asking questions anymore. All right. One that we skipped yesterday. DEA agent dead, 2 injured at shooting in downtown train station. This is out of Tucson. One drug enforcement agent is dead after a shooting took place on a train station in downtown Tucson on Monday. The shooting, which involved law enforcement officers with Southern Arizona's Regional Center Counter-Narcotics Alliances, was reported at 400 North Toole Avenue at the downtown train station. Police said the law enforcement officers were performing a routine interdiction check on the transit hub when they made contact with two individuals. Officials say one of the individuals brandished a handgun and opened fire at the officers. And apparently they caught it on security camera. Correction, apparently they caught it on security audio.
They said they were entering the train from the first car in the rear.
Are you running? So I'm guessing with where the dude was standing and the volume of the shots, that what was happening was kind of happening off to, I suppose for you it would be this side, off to this side of the screen, underneath where the camera was, and then all we see is the officer running in to go back and respond. Officials later released that 3 law enforcement officers were injured in connection to that incident. One has died as a result of injuries sustained in the shooting. Yeah, that's all the paramedics. In a press release held at 1 p.m. Monday, Tucson Police Department Chief Chris Magnus later identified the deceased individual to be an agent with the DEA. So, well, it's sad to see. You don't want to see anybody lose their life over anything, especially over the drug war. End the drug war. It's killing your own, by the way. You're at a point where you're losing your own people over the drug war. When is it time to fucking stop? I don't know. I don't think they're going to. Alright, let's keep going. From the Daily Wire, more Arizona news. Man, it's a good thing I'll be hosting an Arizonan on Monday, most likely. More Arizona news for you guys. There is no border crisis, Arizona GOP Senate candidate. Good luck in 2022, gang. From Hank Berrien. On Sunday, the Pima County Democratic Party in Arizona attacked GOP Senate candidate Blake Masters, saying there is no border crisis, after Masters pointed out the porous nature of the border wall by showing where it simply stopped, allowing drug cartels to monitor the border and instruct their agents when to cross. The Pima County Democratic Party tweeted, "Hey, BG Masters, this is actually what our border region looks like. It's not some imaginary cosplay video game that you refer to as a kill zone. It's a diverse, beautiful, and thriving community. #BorderTown." Looks like we have video of that too.
Breathtaking day in late July. Monsoon rains have been falling on and off all day. And I thought it'd be a great day to come out to the end of the border wall near Nogales and check up on things now that construction has been officially paused. I think it's so important to remember and to remind people that this vastness, this peace, this beauty, this is the reality of most of the borderlands. Our 2,000-mile long border is full of wilderness areas, wildlife refuges, national park units. The majority of our border are scenes like this of peace and serenity and nature. And we still hear day after day from people like Governor Ducey here in Arizona that there is some sort of massive surge, some sort of crisis with people pouring into our country at every possible gap in the border wall. But that's just not true. And this here, this peace, this serenity, this is the reality of most of our beautiful border region. Now, this is the end of the longest stretch of wall in this area in Arizona, going all the way to the Nogales port of entry. And you'd think if people were coming across the border in hordes, there would at least be a single Border Patrol agent stationed here. But I've been here for the last 3 hours, driving up and down, surveying the areas where the wall was under construction, and I haven't seen a single border agent. I think it's so important that we dispel this idea.
Well, I would think that there would be, or should be, Border Patrol agent there myself, but thank you, Captain Hipster, for trying to tell us that, oh yeah, free movement, free love, man. Come on, man. Peace, brother. Legalize it. Thank you, Captain Hipster, for that. So that's going to be the political fight coming out of Arizona. Let's talk about Rochester, New York. Rochester Mayor Lovely Warren submits resignation letter after accepting a plea deal. From Matt Driffel, Christian Garzone, and WROC staff. Rochester Mayor Lovely Warren will resign after accepting the terms of a plea deal on Monday in court. Her resignation will be effective on December 1st. The mayor's trial was scheduled to begin Monday for charges over alleged campaign finance violations that date back to her 2017 re-election campaign. Warren and her two assistants, Albert Jones Jr. and Rosalind Brooks Harris, were accused of using a PAC to get around donation limits during her 2017 campaign. Each has two charges: a scheme to defraud in the first degree, violation of election law, both of which were Class E felonies. One of the attorneys in the courtroom told News 8 Monday that negotiations on the table would reduce the mayor's felony charges to misdemeanor charges, which means the mayor's law license would not be impacted. The deal, however, would require Warren to resign. Several hours later, the mayor ultimately accepted those terms. Jones Jr. and Brooks Harris also pleaded guilty on Monday. Terms of the plea will also resolve another set of criminal charges the mayor is currently facing. Warren and her estranged husband, Timothy Granison, were each handed 3 different charges after a pistol and rifle were found in their home where their daughter was left alone in May. Wow. That sounds dangerous. You would think that a home with a pistol and rifle in it would be so dangerous for kids. Wow. Wow, it's so shocking, it's so scary. It's not. The mayor is serving out the remainder of what is presumptively her last term in office. She was defeated handedly by current city council member Malik Evans in this year's June Democratic primary. She is not on the November ballot. Warren was sworn into office on January 2014, was re-elected in 2017. She was running for re-election this year, set to face off against councilmember Malik Evans in Democratic primary on June 22nd. Evans will be sworn into office for the new year. Deputy Mayor James Smith will become acting mayor upon Warren's effective resignation date of December 1st. And remember, I mean, that was the thing, was Rochester was one of the big hotbeds for all this stuff too, when the BLM stuff came out of this. That was one of the big ones, and she was trying to disband her police force too, so I'm guessing this is what got people looking into it. So if you want to go after your own departments, the departments that your branch hires, then make sure your own house is clean first. From CNBC, here's how states like South Dakota have become global tax havens. Oh my God, it's after 9 already. We might have to skip some things again. Yeah, I'm actually going to skip this and the strike news. We're going to go into the last couple of videos here, and then we'll do something I'm thankful for and head out here. I didn't realize it was already 9:03. So we'll hold off on these two right here. We'll do these ones though. So this was a viral one that's been making the rounds here, because this guy, he shut off his replies because people came back and told him that he was fucking dumb for all this. He shut off his replies, but he's been quote tweeted into fucking oblivion for this one here. So his video says, "This is how capitalism handles excess food."
Closing at Dunkin'. closing at Dunkin'.
So, a couple things to start off with when talking about this. First and foremost, capitalism has excess food. Just so you know. Bolshevik with Chinese characteristics says NKVD Istrepki with a hammer and sickle on his profile. Of course he does. Of course he did. As far as this goes, no, I don't think this is right either, actually. And, you know, when I used to work in a deli, the bakery girls, if they had anything left, which they often didn't, by the way, but if they had anything left, it was fair game for those of us who were employees. You know, have a donut. Have a hard roll. Have this. Have that. Go have this. Go buy a little bit of meat and put it on there. But we can't sell it anymore, and it's got to go in the trash otherwise. And a lot of that does have to do. And you know, a lot of people suggested that this go to a local food shelter or something. And as John pointed out over on the Porch Boys last night, because he's worked around this, and I've worked around this too. A lot of times there are local ordinances that. It's not on a federal level, like John tries to say that it is. It's not an OSHA thing. But there are a lot of times local ordinances or state ordinances that bar you from doing that. That don't allow you to go out and give this away to other people for a homeless shelter because they could be liable, because they might die, they might get poisoned, they might do this, they might do that, they might have an allergic reaction. So we can't let you go out and give this out to food banks and such. Even though most of the stuff is good. Now, here's the problem that I have with this. Having gone through culinary school, having worked in the industry, having looked at this, if you are closing at Dunkin' Donuts and you have that much shrink, you are overproducing. If it's late at night and you have that many donuts still on the shelf, you are doing something very wrong. And the people at Dunkin' Donuts need to come down and have a conversation with you. If you were that close to closing, you have that many donuts on the shelf, there is something else going on. You are doing something else horribly, horribly wrong. Because, like I said, at the bakery when I worked, if the girls at the bakery did give us something over on the deli side because it was the end of the night, and they couldn't sell it again, it was like 1 or 2 Danishes and a crawler. It wasn't like a full shelf like that. And I've been over to like the Dunkin' Donuts that's close to Redacted where I live. I've been over to that Dunkin' Donuts before, and you know, I used to work second shift. Or even if I got out early on second shift, or when I was working mid shift, if I'd stop in there and maybe want to get a coffee or donut before I went on low carb diet. If I'd stop in there, because I had to drive by that place every day. If I'd stop in there at 8, 9, I think they closed at 10, so 10 o'clock, there were like a bagel and 2 ring donuts left. So yeah, if you have that much shrink at the end of the night, you are doing something way, way worse than just throwing out fucking food. And your management needs to have a conversation with you about it. Alright, and the last one. A Libs of TikTok video to cleanse your palate and realize that everything is fucking stupid.
I mean, I can say it more directly. You weren't gifted, talented, or smart. You were just, most likely, statistically speaking, an upper middle class white kid. And so your school district rewarded you by giving you the title of gifted. And then they use that as an excuse to pull resources from your black and indigenous, low-income, disabled, neurodivergent peers and gave them to you. You benefited from the system of white supremacy and classism because you could uphold it as, more likely than not, an upper middle class or middle class white kid. You were the reason and the excuse for withholding resources from marginalized students, and you were complicit in accepting them. And I know you were a child, and I know you probably didn't have a lot of say, and you also didn't have a lot of perspective. But as an adult, if you're still holding on to this idea that you were a gifted kid once, when all that meant is that you could thrive under classism and white supremacy, unpack that. I mean, I can say it more.
Unpack that. Okay. Can one of these libs on TikTok not say something virulently fucking racist once? If you're a smart kid, if you're an extra kid and you get done with your work earlier, it's because you're white. Why? Because black people are fucking dumb? Is that what you're trying to say? Can you say something that's not virulently racist for once? Because that's all that I got out of that was virulent fucking racism. All right, and the last one that we'll do before we do something I'm thankful for and head out of here for today is I told you we revisit this and see what's wrong with the uniform. I didn't see anybody get it in the chat, so we'll take a second and we'll talk about it here. We look at the photo here, and yeah, from where I have it too. I don't have any spoilers off of this, so nobody else gets it, but the officer carrying a revolver in his holster, that's way too fucking high, by the way, has semi-automatic magazines on the other side of his belt. That's the answer. That's the solution. All right. Let's get out of here, shall we? And the last thing we do on a Wednesday is something I'm thankful for, unless I have a mind blank at some point coming into Wednesday and think that it's Thursday and do a thing that I like and a thing that I hate. But it is Wednesday, so we've got to do something I'm thankful for here. And we won't do the fundraiser again, in spite of the fact that, yes, we got a quarter of the way up to where we're going to go. I look at this, I look at some of the things around here. I did talk to my mom for a little bit over the weekend here. I think it was on Monday, actually. I talked to her. It turned out that there wasn't a direct injury to her from being at work. It was an old injury that had flared back up. So as of right now, it doesn't look like she's going to be going back to work on a regular basis anymore, which is a little sad. I know she likes to do what she does, and I know she doesn't like to sit around. But I know she's also coming back and healing. But, I mean, looking back into the small town community, there are situations out there where, okay, you've got to do this much, this much, this much, this much as a copay. And, you know, it's a redacted town, so I'm not going to tell you where it is. And you're not going to be able to find out who the doctor is, but anything. But I know that with what the copays were, with everything else, and how much each one of those visits would have cost, my dad is retired, and now my mom is probably going to be retired too at this point. I hope not, because I know she enjoys going out and conversing with the public like that and having the conversations with the people, but I know that at 61 years of age, sometimes you got to do what you got to do, and you got to do what's more important for your body than it is for going out and enjoying the fruits of waiting tables, carrying food, and going and talking to people. Sometimes you gotta make that trade-off, but you know, you get a doctor out here that says, oh, you have an insurance plan where you have X amount of dollars for every insurance visit, or for every visit that you come into my office. Hey, why don't we do this over the phone and leave the insurance company out of it? I'll call you. I'll call it a personal call, I think is what he's doing. I don't know if that's what he's doing or not, but I'll call it a personal call. Then we don't have to get the copays involved here, and I'll tell you what it is you need to do for therapy. And, you know, everything will be all good and fine and well and good, and your knee will get better. And I mean, she's doing an exercise bike now. She's up, she's walking again, going to things. She's got a cane now, unfortunately, but, you know, it is what it is. But the fact that people are willing to step outside of the lines to make it better and easier for their patients, that's a patient-minded forward. The doctor could have looked at this and said, no, I am working, you pay me by the minute, no matter what. But there are still good people out there. There are still people who are out there that will walk out to the side and say, you know, there's a better way to do this. There's a better way to get around this. There's a better way to make this happen. And we got to find the better way to do this, because, you know, making this kind of copay right now, that doesn't work. That doesn't work for either of us. And you'll never get better if you have to stop doing therapy because you're broke. So good on that doctor. I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful that there are still people out there that are like that. That'll do what's best for the people than what's best for their bottom line. That's what I'm thankful for. Let's change up the track. Let's head out of here for the day. All right, thanks everybody who came by and chatted in the live chat. We will be back here tomorrow morning for more contemporary. And by the way, it looks like we will have a first timer on the podcast scene too. My friend Saint, who you guys have seen in the chat, is off on a a week off, I think, from his regular truck route. So he'll be coming in and discussing the news with us coming up over the week. Sorry, not over the weekend, but over on Monday. So come and check that out as well. Otherwise, we will see you guys all in the Daily Ignoramus. I'm going to go get something to eat, get ready for work, and we will see you here tomorrow with more stupid stuff, probably some more budget stuff, and more contemporary. Until then, I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.